ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਸਿਹਤ ਅਤੇ ਨਸ਼ਾਖੋਰੀ ਦੀ ਸੰਘੀ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਕੈਰੋਲਿਨ ਬੈਨੇਟ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਕ ਹਿੰਸਾ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਅਤੇ ਹੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਕਾਜ਼ ਆਫ ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਫਰਸਟ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦੇ ਪੀਟਰ ਜੌਨਸ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਹੋਏ।
Tend to think of home, and when we say the word home, we think of family, a safe haven, a warm, supportive, and loving environment. Tragically, that is not the reality for everyone, and in fact, for many, especially women and children, home is the space where physical, psychological, and sexual abuse occur, and where fighting seems to never end. We know that family violence is all too common, accounting for roughly 40% of all violent crime reported to police. It can affect anyone in any neighborhood in any part of the country. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has been and continues to be one of those stressors. The emotional stress, economic impacts, and isolation of the pandemic have tragically amplified both the risk and the impacts of family violence. Living with this kind of instability and social disruption can have serious mental health consequences, including depression, PTSD, substance use disorders, and even suicide, an issue people here in Northern Canada and the Yukon have had to contend with even prior to the pandemic. We know that during COVID that there's been an increase in the issue of violence in the home. Some people have seen it as a almost parallel pandemic as we have seen the opioid crisis. It was interesting that the Canadian Women's Federation actually found, because the men weren't leaving their homes, that women didn't have a safe way to escape because the men weren't leaving for work, and they developed that tool of, in a Zoom call, of doing this, so that it was a quiet way of asking for help, as well as a function on some of the websites that would be an almost kill function, so that nobody could see which sites you were looking at if you were exploring ways to get out of the home. And so we know that exposure to violence is especially damaging to children and teens, and with research showing that experiencing or witnessing family violence in these critical stages of development can lead to a lifetime of health and social challenges. I think as a family doctor, I've seen firsthand how family violence can leave that legacy of pain. In fact, even as the daughter of a police officer that before the war, I remember my father didn't talk too much about the war, and he certainly didn't talk too much about policing. But one of the things he did discuss with me was how the hardest thing he had to deal with as a police officer was domestic violence.